Hello and welcome to Woke Watch. We've all heard the phrase, go woke, go broke. And we know that's what happens. A company goes woke and it loses money. But it appears there are some organisations who are hell-bent on committing financial suicide. Take the bloated, vast, all-encompassing leviathan that is Disney. They're putting out one flop after another, all because every film they're making is so fucking woke. A film they released, I think it was last year, I'll stress I haven't seen this film, but it lost millions, was called Strange World, and I've read the synopsis. So it's about a couple fighting climate change on a different planet. Now climate change, that's very relevant. And the couple happen to be interracial, nothing wrong with that. Before I met Mrs. Disgruntled, I've been out with ladies who are a different colour to me. Their child is homosexual, again there's nothing wrong with that. And they also have help from their dog, which is disabled. How much of a fucking box-ticking exercise is that? A film about climate change with an interracial couple, a homosexual child and a dog who presumably can park where it fucking likes. Something woke I did try to watch was Netflix's Queen Cleopatra. I got about half an hour into episode 1 and turned it off before I started self-harming. So this is billed as a docu-series, but interestingly doesn't have any actual facts to back any of the claims up. The voiceover will say things like, Cleopatra, she was a warrior, a scholar and a scientist, and I'm sat there waiting for the expert to come and explain it. And it doesn't happen, it's just people with vague opinions. And of course this is the series where they've race swapped Cleopatra from a Greek to a black woman. And the actress playing her, I can't remember her name, she's British, but I know she's gone on record to refer to white people as white devils, and that isn't racist. However, Queen Cleopatra, with all its wokeness, has a 2% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, or Tomatoes if you're on the other side of the Atlantic. That's the worst score for anything ever. I mean the worst score for anything on Rotten Tomatoes. Obviously you can score less than 2%. But if you really want to wipe out the value of your company, then employ a trans person to do your advertising. During Women's History Month we saw this with Hershey's, who got a trans woman to speak up for women during Women's History Month, so they got a man in a dress to speak up for women. And then more recently, both Nike and Bud Light have lost billions because they employed transgender all-round weirdo Dylan Mulvaney. Not to be outdone, Adidas have waded into the game with their new Pride women's swimsuit. Take a look at it. If you looked carefully, you will have noticed that the person wearing that women's swimsuit isn't a biological woman. The hairy chest and the bulge where only men have a bulge sort of gives it away. And when I read about this, the journalist had written they don't know if the model identifies as being male. We can all see he's got a cock and bollocks. As soon as that advert was released, Boycott Adidas started trending on Twitter. And it's not surprising, because once again, that's clearly a job suited to a biological woman, but instead, to be woke, they've given it to a man who's a bit confused about his identity. And it's called the Pride swimsuit and we're coming up to Pride Month. But surely, if it's about Pride Month, why not get a lesbian to model it? Usually, women's swimsuits will be worn by women. And of course, a few cheating male athletes who are crap in their own sport, so don't mind beating women. But why are Adidas so keen to alienate their customer base? Half of the human race will wear women's swimsuits if they go swimming. So why give the job to someone who doesn't need it? They're being woke and once again going broke. And of course it will be marketing types sitting around a table going, we need to be inclusive, but no one's fucking asking for it. No one is asking to see a man wearing women's swimwear. No one! So when it comes to sportswear, I've already thrown out my Nike trainers. Now I have to get rid of my Adidas jogging bottoms because despite the size of me, I do exercise. Thankfully, so far, Slazenger haven't weighed into this. But if they get a trans model as well, soon I'm going to be walking around here stark bollock naked. And no one wants to see that. And if you're active on Twitter, you'll know that Riley Gaines is blowing up on that platform. She's the former swimmer who's now a women's rights activist. She had to compete against the transgender cheat Leah Thomas. And of course Thomas was a man who wore a women's swimsuit to compete in women's events. So with that being so relevant on social media, why the fuck did Adidas decide to put a man in a swimsuit for its marketing campaign? Of course, the reason Adidas have done this is because everything has to be about the trans movement. So that's less than 1% of the human race. And I would hazard a guess that in that less than 1%, there's probably only a handful of people who are bothered about seeing a man in a woman's swimsuit so they feel included and represented. But in doing so, Adidas have managed to alienate just over half of the human race. The women who would actually buy their fucking products. I'll end with my big concern. If people do boycott Adidas, here in the UK, if that brand is no longer available, how will we know who the drug dealers are? As ever, thanks for watching.